Hi.
Hello. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Adobe Live and another edition of the Adobe Spotlight. Today, we're speaking with Emma Orhun. I am so excited. We connected recently. She is so much fun. She describes herself as a walking science experiment, I believe. And also, I've heard you say that you're an overthinking artist. I mean, there's so much to know and learn about you. So please, in your own words, before I have tons of questions to ask, and of course, if you have any questions out there, please put it on our chat so that you get direct access to Emma today. Ask her anything. So, Emma, tell us,
Anything.
yeah, anything.
Doesn't even have to be art related.
For sure. So tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
I'm Emma. I'm a software engineer turned graphic designer turned creative technologist turned artist. Um, I find myself always like not necessarily feeling like I have a niche. It's just that like I feel like I need to make something, and then whatever is the easiest thing for me to make it through, I use that, which is a double-edged sword, but I think that's what keeps me not bored with life. Like always
Yeah,
having to learn something new. But yeah, I would just say like I'm addicted to making stuff, as corny as that sounds.
not at
But
all.
I
We're all
feel
born
I
creative.
I feel like the thumbnail needs like the graphic designer like quotations.
I think a lot of people feel that way. So I'm curious. I'm sure others are curious as well. First of all, I want to say hello to a few people. There's Barrow, there is Isabel, Victor. Oh, Voodoo Val's here too. Hello. Robert, of course, and Seta. So I want to know, when did you start really diving into, I think you said as a kid, you started using digital tools. So walk us through your very first, I guess, interaction with
Okay.
doing something creative.
I would say there's been like a few years ago I had like this midlife crisis where I was like, I've literally there's no pattern to what I do. I'm like, I don't know what I do. I do everything. So if I do everything, then I'm doing nothing, something like that. And then I
Mhm.
realized that there has always been a through line, and it was like I've always loved computers. I've always loved drawing and always like kind of inventing. Like, I wrote like a graphic novel in elementary school in my notebook that like everybody would pass around between the classes, and like at first it just started as like me drawing in it, but then people would like look over my shoulder and be like, okay, what's the next page gonna say? And then so I think that was like my first. I never really registered it, but like now as an adult I'm like, wait, that was really cute.
Yeah.
um but like the second I got access to the internet, I was probably like 4 or 5 or something, and I was just like always at the computer. Like I'd get home and just go online. It was mostly like games like Club Penguin or like I don't know, but it was always like taking it a bit further than like the average user. It was like, oh, I'm gonna use proxies, or I'm gonna like find cheats to like be able to do something like that people would be like, what? Like, how did you do that? And then I was like exposed to Photoshop, I think through like a summer camp. And then from there I was like, wait, this kind of ties the two like things I really enjoyed together. And then from there, it's always just been lingering in the back of my head, but I never really thought it was an option as a career
How
until
old
I
were you?
already had a career.
Yeah, yeah. We'll talk about the pivot momentarily, but how old were you when you first learned about Photoshop or tried Photoshop?
I want to say like middle school.
Yeah.
I remember I went to a summer camp that was like Photoshop focused or like computer focused, and I really loved it. And I'm very grateful that my parents put me in stuff like that.
Yeah.
Um, and then I didn't really touch it again until like in high school. I learned that there was like a media arts course, and I took that. And then very grateful for my teacher at the time because I was always like, no, I can't really do anything with this. Like, it's cool. I can like Photoshop Kim Kardashian to look like a character from Avatar. But like what use is that? But then he was like, oh, join the yearbook club. And then I did, and then that became really fun. And like it would just be me and him like working on it after school, and like way past everyone had already left. And he also just pushed me like towards computers and towards conferences and stuff, and just being like, oh, you should go to this thing. And then, yeah.
Yeah, so it seems like you did a lot of creative stuff at a very starting at a very young age. Um, but you chose to study computer science in college. And I want to note that I don't know if a lot of people know that you have a dad who was a physicist, and your mom um, is or was a molecular biologist. So science, science and logic was a big thing in your household, I'm sure. And you do talk about your love of computers. You just said it in the beginning. So right out of high school, you actually got a full-time job, right? As a software engineer at Shopify while you were in school getting that CS degree.
Yeah.
Yeah. How did you get that full-time gig, right out of high school?
It was doing university full time and then doing the work part time, but I would spend most of my time at work regardless.
Yeah.
But I honestly don't know how I got it. It was, I think, when there was this program called Dev Degree that Shopify was running, and I'm sure they still are,
Mhm.
where they like cover your tuition and then they're like, we'll just train you on how to do stuff. And I was really grateful because I felt like in university they were teaching me like technology that was relevant 10 years ago. And then I
Yeah.
would go to work and see stuff that was like on the front line, front edge, or whatever, at like the forefront of technology. And I was like, okay, like what's the point of me going to school? So I basically like I graduated from like Google University basically, but um I think they just saw potential. Like I built a really bad app in high school. I didn't even know that computer science was a thing basically until my second last year of high school, when I learned that there were computer science classes that I just never knew existed. So then in grade 11 or grade 12, I took like every single class with every single prerequisite in like 1 year to be able to catch up. And it turned out to be like my favorite class in the whole world, maybe apart from graphic design. But
Mhm.
that was just because of like the friends I had in the class and the projects. And then I built like a really bad app called Priorities, which would like help me prioritize my tasks with ease. And it would just be like you put in a task and say like how urgent it is and how, what was it, how urgent it is and like how big of a task it is, or like how important and how urgent. And then it would like rank the order of things that you should do based on that. But like half the time it would break and stuff. But I think I was just pretty good at like selling myself maybe to Shopify and just being like, look, there's a lot of potential here. You want me? Like, please.
Yeah. Half of getting
And
stuff is being able to communicate and convince
yeah,
people.
yeah, exactly. Selling myself. But there were some people in there who were like had been coding for years and like really understood stuff. And I don't know if my class in high school was like the most advanced, or like when I got there I was definitely like, oh my God, like I feel like I'm the worst in this class at what they're teaching us. But I don't know, it just became really fun. I met some of my best friends in there, so just the overall environment was really fun and that kept me going.
Yeah. So after college, what happened? How did you
The
pivot?
pandemic hit. The
Mm.
pandemic hit, and then I realized I was only in the tech scene for like the slides and the free lunches. And then when I was like forced to be in my house, I was like, oh no, like what am I to do? This isn't fun at all anymore. And I think at that point, because of like at the start being so bad at computer science, and then at the end being like, oh wait, like I'm kind of okay at this, kind of goaded. That I was like, wait, I feel like I wasn't really a great drawer, but I was always journaling and like trying to make things look good. So I was like, I feel like if I just did this every single day, like I would be able to get good at it. So I would like give myself random challenges, like draw a giraffe every single day, and like watch tutorials on how to use different features and how to draw, and I started posting online because I also had like an itch to do something uncomfortable, and that was really uncomfortable for me at the time.
Mhm.
Um, and there was like very little likes, very little feedback at the time, and but I just kept going because I was like, I don't care. This feels like really cool for me, and now it's paid off.
How long did it take before you posting on social, on a consistent level, I'm sure, before brands started noticing you and reaching out to you, and you started getting paid, for doing
Um,
artistic work?
I wanna say maybe a year or maybe a year and a half. It was definitely not enough to go full time from it, but I think after a year, a few people had been like, "Oh, can you design like an album cover for me?" or "Can you design some merch for me?" And then I was like, "Wait, this is really cool." So then I started doing that, but then I was also no, I think I was still doing school and work at the same time while doing that. So then that's when I had my first panic attack.
Oh,
And um but it led me to work like Skate was one of the first brands I ended up working with, and while I was still working at Shopify, and I worked with them until we basically worked on a shoe together, and then some merch still after, and I'm still in like still have great love for them, but I don't do as much
yeah.
anymore.
And if the people watching or people listening later when they watch the replay, the shoe is a Nike sneaker, right? Am I not supposed
Yes. You know, yes.
It's
Yeah.
crazy, it's
Yeah.
crazy. I know, I know. I don't know if someone out there can put a link or post, or if, Emma, you have it near you, you can show. I loved it, I Googled it, and it's so
Really
beautiful. I love
colorful.
the colors. I love the
These are them.
colors.
These are my the ones that I haven't used. The ones that I have used are like really dirty because I've worn them so much. But like it has like clear bottoms and like really cute details like hearts on like
Yeah.
and when you skate in them, these are meant to be skateboarded in. Like the colors wear off to show other colors. And then
Oh,
yeah, there's just like little doodles of mine all over the shoe and whatnot.
aw.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely want that. It's so cool. Look at the bottoms. Oh my god. Uh, yeah, did you even think when you started out, because previously you said, "Oh, I didn't even know you can get paid for being an artist or doing creative work." Uh, but it's people do, people do.
Yeah, and I'm
What
very
made
shocked.
you Yeah, but you're doing it. I
Yeah.
wanna know how or when you knew to take that leap of faith and say, I'm not going to work for somebody and I'm going to create art for
It was
100% and work for myself.
it
Was there like
was
a moment?
yeah. Yeah, it was right after these shoes dropped. I think I gave in my 2 weeks. Um And I was like on the fence about it for so long, but I went to Chicago for the launch of these shoes because Skate is based in Chicago. And there was like a huge line out the store. I was not like aware of the sneaker slash skate community that much prior to this. So when I got the gig, I was like, okay, this is cool, but I like really didn't think much of it or didn't know like the magnitude of what it was. But yeah, I saw like a huge line of people outside, like people we also made t-shirts and sweaters and stuff and people just like buying it to collect it or like I'd be walking around Chicago and people would like stop us and take photos of the shoes and stuff because it was like also so big in Chicago, like that community has done a lot.
Yeah.
So at that moment I was like, I don't know, like honestly, it was also because I'd been working full time for so long that I'm like a very like comfort or like security based person. Like
Mhm.
I'm not as impulsive as I'd like to be, so I definitely needed some savings and I saved up a bit from working at Shopify for so long.
Yeah.
But at that point I was like, whatever, like I don't care if I have to move back home. I'm gonna do it. And and then it was honestly really slow for a year. Like still living off the money I'd made back then. I stopped paying rent and And now it's picked up again to where it's definitely a full-time job.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
It's definitely something you have to continue. It's not like it's not steady all the time. I feel like when I talk
exactly.
to creatives that are doing it full time for themselves, there's lulls and there's like busy time when you're doing 4 or 5 projects at the same time or
That's me
nothing at
right
all.
now. That's
Yeah.
me right now. Like some months it's like, oh, like this really doesn't feel like I can support myself. And then other months I'm like, wait, like if it keeps up like this. Um, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Let's talk about your aesthetics for a moment. What is your style or aesthetic? How would you describe it, and has it changed over the years?
Um, uh, I don't know. I don't know how to describe my style. I would say it's like colorful, pretty abstract. I don't know. I would say it's like inspired by nature a lot and by computers in a bit. It's like some
Mhm.
structures that I learned in computer science have inspired me, but like the through line has always been like kind of very playful and colorful. Um, and it has developed a lot. I would say the stuff that I made like at the start, like if you scroll all the way to the bottom of my page, it's like I would never make something like that today, but it
On your
still feels
website?
like me on my Instagram.
Mm.
It still feels like me, and I'm still like there's parts of it that I still love, but I'm like, oh, maybe I wouldn't have made the colors as bright, or like it was so colorful, and I feel like now it's more like subtle with like pops. I don't know,
Yeah.
you can't really tell from my my it feels like this, but this is also like an old setup. I would have decorated my room differently had I started today too.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
everything feels the same to me. Like how I dress, how I draw, how I decorate
Mhm.
my room.
I feel like being an artist, you are also a representation of your work, right? How you show up and including the clothes you wear or the colors you put on your face or your body or your, accessories. It's
Hmm.
so important.
Yes,
There's
for
a lot of
sure.
people saying like, "Oh, Ottawa's showing up," and also Chicago
Yeah,
representation. Yeah, yeah.
we're
Thank you.
worldwide.
Thank you, Voodoo Val, for putting Emma's Instagram on the chat so people can check it out. Um, when you went to school for computer science and then worked, as a software engineer, creative technologist when you graduated, what transition, like you had said, you realized you were doodling a lot. I think you did this project where did you draw on a Post-it note every day or something?
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
like um everything I do feels like kind of the path of least resistance for me to make something. And I think at the time it was like drawing is a skill that I don't feel like I'm the best at yet. And the only thing that I think really matters is like the ideas to me. And then it's like
Mhm.
whatever medium you choose to express it through, that's just like a second thought. So the drawing on the sticky note challenge was basically just me being at my desk and drawing something every day that I'd never seen before. And I was like, if creativity is a skill too, then I can also train that by like making something that I hadn't seen every day. And
Mhm.
I don't know if this is like an incredible philosophy, especially for people starting out, but my motivation was always to like make stuff that I hadn't seen before. So I was like, as long as I train that ability, then whatever medium I choose to express it through, because I'm a really indecisive person, like that can just serve that idea at the
Yeah.
time.
We do have a question from Barrow from, the chat. They wanna know what has really helped you bring ideas to life?
Writing them down. I don't feel like an idea has the chance to like see itself through if I don't write it down. Like, I feel like there's so much happening in my head, and it feels like often the second that I write something down, that's like the first step to it becoming tangible. I feel
Mhm.
like anything that I've wanted and that I've written down has happened almost. And honestly, I don't write as much as I want to because it scares me so much almost because I'm like the second I put it down, it becomes tangible and then I have to do it and then it happens and then but I would say writing it down is the most important thing to me. Otherwise, there's too much happening in here. And even when I do write it down, there's a chance that I won't come back to it until months later. But I would
Yeah.
just say, like, practice the art of getting it out of your head first. And whether it be like whenever I'm in meetings or something, I always have a notebook there. And then it feels like while I'm focusing on something, like my subconscious is speaking through the paper. So, like, as somebody who overthinks a lot, I find it sometimes difficult to just sit down and like look at a notebook and be like, okay, make something of this. Um, and so I find moments like that really helpful to like focus on something, but then let my subconscious out onto
Yeah.
paper.
That is really sound advice, and I've heard that from other creatives. And again, Emma, I told you I'd forget to introduce myself, so yeah, I did.
Yes.
I did. So for those of you who are just tuning in or have been with us, I'm Teresa Au.
Hi,
And
Teresa.
and I work at Adobe, and I'm part of the community team. I'm also the host and producer of Adobe's podcast called In the Making, where I talk to a lot of creative people about their uh, personal journeys, whether it's learning something in life or just their creative outputs and their careers. So one of the guests I had recently, her name is Kelly Anderson. And she always talks about having a notebook and putting down her ideas. She calls it her half baked ideas because you never know. You can go back to it years from now, or months from now, or days from now to really like work on it because it sparks something and it'll always be there. Right. So I love that you're doing the same. It seems like
Yeah,
it's a common thing.
it's really helpful, and I'd recommend everybody do that. Even if it's like your iPhone Notes app, like, and
Yeah.
it's like your groceries, and then like a random idea, and then like a text message that you're planning to send, and then like just putting it somewhere so you can
Yeah.
see it, and for your brain to like re-register
Yeah. I text myself all the time. Okay.
it.
Someone online, Gina, really wanted to see all your rings.
Yeah.
Let's see them.
Ring.
I know.
Oh my God, I
I love
recently
your
got
rings.
acrylic nails done and then I peeled them all off. So don't look at my nails. They used to be really cute, but I chewed them all off this past weekend. I've been really liking getting my nails done, but these are my rings.
Yeah, the rings are really awesome. I'm a
I
ring
would
person too. I love my
I
rings.
love them. I love like clinking them. I also think they're like the best fidget toy for anyone who has like attention problems.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. Yeah, that's funny. That was Gina. Can we see your rings, please? Oh, so cute. Okay, let's talk more about your aesthetics. So you also use a lot of mixed media, right? What is
yeah.
that process like? And what would you say the distribution between physical and digital is in your work?
I would say 50-50, honestly, because a lot of my projects are purely digital and then a lot of my like free flowing art is physical. Um, but my favorite is when I'll start off like physically and then scan it and then bring it into Photoshop and do something to it digitally and then print it out back onto like a physical thing. I actually have a project I might share at the end that shows a bit of that.
Awesome.
Um, but yeah, I really like it because I just like combining a lot of stuff. So like let's say I was talking about like that mindless like journaling. Like I'll create shapes there that I wouldn't think about was if I was like consciously trying to, but then I'll be able to like cut that out and use it in a piece where I'm like a bit more serious about making something. So then it's like I just love combining a lot of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. They're all talking in chat about your command ring. Oh, the CMD ring. Did you make it? Did you commission for someone to make that?
Yeah.
I think you should start your own merch line.
Well, that was a plan. I'm actually trying to find the second half to this ring. I actually, okay, wait. I also have this hand here that has like the resin printed prototype and then
Yeah.
another silver. prototype that I just didn't polish because it was too sharp to wear. It had like these nubs on the bottom from like the
Uh-huh.
casting tree, and it's really sharp to wear, but I was still wearing it because I'm like, I'm even gonna have to wear this someday if I plan on selling it. But yes, I'm working with two of my friends, one of them named Andrew Dockstader, on this table that is definitely overdue. We started it like maybe a year and a half ago, maybe longer, but it just kept divulging into like more and more convoluted plans. I don't know if I'm just gonna say everything, but we I really like the command symbol.
Yeah.
And I was then he came up with the idea of using it like making a bolt that has the command symbol instead of like the Phillips head
Uh-huh.
screwdriver, so it's like
Oh,
instead of like
yeah.
the thing like this that you have a normal screwdriver to stick into, it's a bolt with the command. And then the screwdriver would be a ring, which is this ring.
Uh-huh.
So then I got my friend Void Phil or Sebastian. Somebody should tag him in the chat, Void Phil Studio on Instagram. And he's a legend at like 3D modeling and then casting jewelry. He also made this one. Um,
Mhm.
and so he modeled it, and this is still a prototype. It does not fit into the bullets that we have made. That's why I think it's been taking a minute now, and I just get distracted by other things.
Yeah.
But it's just like a really fun, like side passion project that whenever everybody has time, it's like, oh, let's just tap back into
Yeah. Someday
this.
you'll have a full collection and you already have
Exactly.
tons of customers.
Exactly. But
Yeah.
yeah, that was the plan. It was like we make a table, but then eventually this could be like one of my first merch pieces would be like the ring and maybe the screwdriver and then or the bolt and then people could use it in like whatever way they wanted to. Or just
Yeah.
have it as an art piece.
Why is that symbol so significant to you? And I've heard you say that to you, it's an abstraction. It stands for
Yeah.
abstraction or something. Why does it speak to you so much?
I was always a Windows girly, like a Windows versus a Mac. And then when I started working at Shopify, they gave us MacBooks and I saw this symbol on it and I was just like I don't know, I was like, this is beautiful. And then I found it really interesting because it was like it it was a button that I pressed so much, but it had so many different purposes. Like it's like the start of so many different things. Like the amount of times Command Z something or like copy paste, like I'm always using this button. So I just like
Mhm.
liked it and I would just start drawing it places. And already in in the like overall scheme of everything, it's like that's the abstraction for all of the functions that it serves for on the Mac, if
Mhm.
that makes sense. But
Yeah.
then I saw it when I was on a flight to Yukon. There was an intersection that looked like the command symbol. And then I was like, wow, like some person engineered this road in this way because it was like the most efficient way of getting everybody onto these four roads at the same time.
Yeah.
And I was like, it's so beautiful that this symbol that's on my computer also serves for like that. And then I looked into it, I think when I went to Copenhagen, because it was everywhere.
Yeah.
And because over there it means like
Special
center
attractions or
special
something?
attraction, exactly. It would be like command symbol zoo and then like an arrow. And I was
Yeah.
like, wait, that's kind of really cool. So then I Googled it and it just serves so many purposes. Nobody owns the symbol, so it's just like you can do whatever you want with it. And this designer who worked for Apple, Suzanne Kerr, she had also seen it when she went to, I think, Switzerland or Scotland or somewhere
Mhm.
Scandinavian, and she saw the same symbol. And then she brought it back to the Mac and was like, let's use it on the computer. So I
Yeah.
just felt like, oh my God, everything is connected. And like she had the reverse process of like how I discovered, like I saw it through the computer and then I ended up in Scandinavia seeing it, but she saw it there and then brought it to the computer. And I was like, oh
Yeah.
my God, this is just so beautiful. And the fact that it's not owned by anybody just means I can make a ring out of it.
Yeah, it's free for anybody to use
Yeah,
for
like
themselves.
how many symbols that are so iconic like this are just usable by everyone without having to like pay for, I don't know, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
I get why you have it everywhere, and you'll show something later. Gina on chat wants to know how you, as an artist, overcome procrastination or laziness, which I'm sure everyone battles with at
I'm
one
looking
time
for
or
everybody submit your answers in the chat. I'm looking. I'll be looking. I'm looking. I'm looking for the answer too.
Emma wants to know too.
Yeah. I would say the number one demon to me when it comes to procrastination is my cell phone. Like, I'm so addicted to it. My screen time is ridiculous. And like that just stops me from making anything and from being bored. And I think the best thing to combat procrastination is almost boredom. It's like
Mm,
being bored enough to be like, okay, I'm just gonna try to make something. Um, it's like if you're always pushing, I'm always pushing what I want to do. Like it's almost like the last thing that I prioritize, like the things that I genuinely want to do versus stuff that people ask of me. I find a lot easier to just jump in and get to it.
mhm.
Um, I think writing once again is like the best thing. It's like, why are you pushing this thing out of the way? Why are you prioritizing everything over what you actually want to do? And if it if it means you have to like lock your phone in a different room, or recently, actually 2 days ago, I turn that like setting on your phone where you can only be on TikTok for a certain amount of time a day. So I did that and then I set it for an hour and a half. And then yesterday at 2 a.m. the notification went off where it was like, sorry, you can't use TikTok anymore. And I was like, oh my God. So all of today I can't use TikTok because I blasted through it at 2 a.m. last night.
Oh,
And it's not on my home screen, so I'm searching for it, but it won't show up because I'm banned from it because I banned myself. So just making it harder for you to access the things that come more naturally. Like it's so natural to reach for TikTok or Instagram because it's like programmed to be addictive.
yeah,
And yeah, it's like putting systems in place to not allow yourself to do that
yeah.
or
Yeah, self-discipline. You gotta set boundaries,
self-discipline. Yeah.
uh, and
Exactly. That's like probably the hardest part about this job. Also, because it's so self-governed, it's like, oh, if my boss isn't asking something, if my boss asks me for something, like I'll do it that day. But because I'm my own boss, sometimes I'm like, well, I worked for like 2 days straight, so I can take a day off. And then like,
yeah,
oh, but there's an event tomorrow, so I have to get ready for that. And then that takes up a whole other day. And then it's like, okay, when am I actually going to do the stuff that I want? Looking for the
yeah.
answers. Drop it in the chat, please.
Well, Schwa Films is saying, "Lately, I've been giving myself deadlines. Specific timelines really help me."
Hi, Shua.
Yeah?
She was actually on a project that I'm going to be showing later,
Oh,
um,
cool.
featured in it. But I I have set deadlines for myself, and I just don't know how to stick to them sometimes. I was
Yeah.
supposed to have a YouTube video edited for like 2 weeks ago, and I wrote it in my like note-taking app and wrote it down, and I was editing it for a long time, and then another project comes along that somebody asks me, and then I'm like, okay, and then I completely forgot about it. So how do I don't know. Now what?
Yeah, yeah. Zach says, "I start things for 5 minutes minimum and see where that takes me. Sometimes 5 minutes turns into 5 hours,"
That's
which is
actually
true,
that
which
sounds
is true.
really good.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll think about that. I'll sit
So
on that one.
yeah, I'm sure there's so many different ways, and really, I feel like it's forcing yourself to set the boundaries and limits and jumping in even if you don't feel like it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I wanna talk a little bit about your digital tools because we've talked about your writing down things, and you said your process is kinda half, physical, half digital. Um, as a content creator and graphic designer, how do you leverage digital tools like what we offer, for example? You mentioned
Um,
Photoshop before and yeah.
yeah, I love Photoshop. I also use an app on my iPad that I'm not sure I'm allowed to talk about. Um, but I mostly use Photoshop and Illustrator. Um, for like especially for stuff I really like when stuff like aligns nicely.
Mhm.
So that's like the best place to do that. Or anytime I make like Instagram carousels, like there's very little I care more about in life than my Instagram. I just love it so much. So like I make these carousels that like slide over into the next slide, and I do all of that in Photoshop. But then sometimes I'll like print out what I did on Photoshop and then scan it
Right.
and then put it back in Photoshop and then realign it and cut it out and um yeah.
What's your favorite digital tool or feature that helps you with your work? Like, makes it faster or easier?
Grids.
The gr the grids. How
Just making like a grid layout.
Yeah, that's helpful for many people, I'm sure.
Yeah. Also, I want to say like playing a lot. I don't, that's not like a specific tool, but it's like I genuinely couldn't tell you like what a specific blend mode does, but it's literally just like me clicking through each of them and just seeing which one looks the best and then playing like around with it. That like just helps me achieve what I want, even if I don't exactly know what I want in my head. But like when I see it, I'm like, oh, that feels better than the last thing. Let's go in this direction.
I think experimenting, I've heard that.
Yeah,
Like, they don't even go through the tutorial. Some people just think of, yeah, Photoshop as a playground, and so they'll click on
exactly.
buttons and say, "What does this do? What does this do?"
Exactly. I'm like, I just feel like making a rectangle now. Like, what can we do with this?
Yeah,
That's why I'm
experimentation is
like a
so
graphic
important.
designer.
Yeah. Um, no, I think it's so important to experiment and be playful, and I think
There's
your
so
art
many tutorials. There's too
there
many.
are,
There's
there
so
are.
many tutorials. I've made a few. I've made many in my time, but like, I think the real tutorial is you locking yourself in a room with it and just seeing what you can make, knowing what you know at that moment.
I do find those really short videos of how to very helpful for someone who, don't know anything about Photoshop or have only touched it once or twice. Like, I saw yours recently. You did one on Photoshop on your stories or Instagram. And, I really appreciate people telling me exactly where to go, like, then do this and click on that. And so I think a lot of people find that very useful.
Think so too. The funny thing is, like, one of my videos I made, it was like me doing a tutorial of this feature that I just discovered, which is the content aware scale tool.
Mhm.
And I did it, and there was just like one step that I didn't do like extremely like optimized. And I got so many comments being like, why did she do it like that? Like, why didn't she do it like this instead? And I literally, it's like, girl, I didn't know I could do it like that. Like, thank you. And then I pinned their comment and I'm like, thank you so much for letting me know. But like, I go back at it the next time, I forgot exactly what they told me to do. And I just do it the same way that I did before.
Well, with art, I think you and I were talking about it, there is no right or wrong answer. There is no right
Exactly.
or wrong, process.
Exactly.
Yeah, everyone can get to the same result or the result they want, but they might go about it differently. Yeah, it's different paths, different paths. So I know you wanted to show us some stuff, that you've been working on or worked on. Now would be the time because we have about 20-ish minute left. And for those joining, we are talking to the amazing Emma Orhan, who is a digital artist, digital physical artist. And yes, we're going to look at some of her work and she's going to show us a little bit of her process as well.
Okay.
Can everybody
I want,
see that? Yeah.
yeah. I want to talk about this one first, which ended up being like my biggest carousel that I've ever posted. Like a lot of my photo posts don't really hit like the explore page, and it's mostly
Mhm,
just me doing it for the people who have been there for a long time. I'm just like, I don't know, I took a lot of fun photos and I want to show you guys in a creative way. But this one
mhm.
actually reached a lot of new people, and I want to show like in the camera the physical things as I was talking, like um my dad studied physics, so I found this old physics book that he had. It's called Physics Made Simple.
Uh-huh,
And I had never really seen it has like a bunch of diagrams like this in it that I
uh-huh.
found really fascinating. I don't know what half of this means. I really like diagrams and stuff. and there was a lot of white space within it. So I was like, I've never really seen people print onto pages that have already been printed on. And
Mm.
like that, there's already a perfect, gorgeous design to it. Like, what if I just build on top of it? So
Mhm.
then I created like, if we go back to my Photoshop, I don't have the original files, but if you look, like this was one page, and I just put like this photo of me as a child, this photo of me as a child. I scanned the papers and then just
Mm.
laid out some photos on top of it.
Mhm.
And it doesn't like print exactly how it looks like when I do it in Photoshop. I would just create a document the size of the page and then just kind of wing it.
Mhm.
And because of that, like some things didn't sit exactly how I wanted them to, but that's like my favorite kind of mistake that happens because it's like, oh, I have to like rebalance everything. And that's why like I'll like add a little pink thing here or like draw on top of it over here. It's like because the way that I printed it didn't feel balanced, but I still have the power to make it feel balanced.
Yeah.
So then I just like glued on some
The
little pieces of paper that
fortune.
I had, or like this sticker that I got from my friend's mom when I was like 4 years old.
My melody.
And yes. And then so it was just like a mix of markers and this like book from the 1980s and emojis. And it's like this was one of my favorite projects because it felt really organic. And I just love like when you scan something, like the texture, and like I don't feel like you can get this digitally, but then you can put it together in a way that makes it really presentable and like cool digitally because people don't see a lot of handmade stuff on their phone.
Yeah.
Um, so it's just like it feels like an amalgamation of like everything that I am,
Yeah.
and yeah, and I have all like the papers here, and it's like I could still do something with this someday. I don't know what, like even just taping it up on my like all over my room like I do with that stuff. Um, but then yeah, I brought it all back into Photoshop and laid it out in like a 3 photo carousel. And it
Mhm.
was made of like one, two, three, four, oops, 4, 5 pages. And none of this was planned. It was just like, okay, what next? What next? What next? And it feels like a little game that I play.
Mhm. Yeah, like I
Um,
said, you're just going with your imagination and your gut.
yes,
There's no rules.
exactly. And then a lot
Gina
of
says
people,
Gina's saying, "This is so beautiful."
oh,
She also wants to know who's been the most intimidating or what's been the most intimidating and scariest moment in your career so far? Was there anything art or tech related that you found particularly challenging to learn?
mm, I yeah, everything,
I
everything.
was gonna say, from listening to your different talks or posts, it seems like, yeah, you're saying everything is kinda scary.
Yeah, because like I said, once again, like a lot of people will message me to do graphic design, and then they'll just see my Instagram and think like, "Oh wow, this just looks like so cohesive." But like it's so not planned that when I go into a project planning something, like it feels like unnatural to me. And then I get a lot of like imposter syndrome being like, "Oh my gosh, like I'm not actually the graphic designer that you think I am, and like I'm not
Yeah,
built for this. I don't know how to make stuff look like real, like professional that much. Like this looks professional just because of playing so much, but it feels like sometimes with commissions I can't do that as much.
mhm.
Um, I'm not really great with feedback sometimes. I would say every project I've done has felt so different that it feels like I have to relearn something at every step. And then eventually you just get comfortable and confident relearning stuff or meeting new people. And like sometimes I'll meet somebody and I'm like, oh my God, I'm so intimidated by you. But I have to like kind of act like I'm not because I'm like, I'm an equal. Like we're equal.
Yes,
I'm an equal.
yes,
Everybody is equal.
yeah,
And instead of just looking at what they've done and been like, oh my God, I'm working with this really cool person, like I'm freaking out. It's like, no, we're
right,
literally all the same person. And
yeah.
um definitely I just 100 things and then stick to 10 of them. So it's just like about trying so much, especially when I'm so nicheless. And it's like, oh, sure, I'll do this random project that I've never done before,
Yeah.
for minimal pay. Sure, I'll try it. And then I'll try it and be like, no, actually, I don't want to do this. And then moving forward, it's just process of elimination, being like, no, I've
Yeah,
done something similar in the past and it didn't work. But I'm so like, if I don't do it, how will I know? So I
exactly.
just say yes to a lot of stuff and then figure it out and then say
Yeah,
no if
and
I
then
change
eventually
your mind.
yeah, eventually you'll know what like you said, you will know
Yeah.
what doesn't suit you or speaks to you.
Exactly.
And I also think that the most successful people, we all have fears. The ones that are
Mhm.
successful are the ones who do it anyway, who, like,
Yeah,
jump right in. Um,
exactly.
yeah.
And
I
I
used
think
to
no, oh,
oh, sorry.
sorry.
There was another question, but go finish
Mhm.
your thought.
Um, I forget.
Oh, then I'll the ask what
Yeah.
just popped up in the chat is, what is your process when taking on a project in terms of the branding, creative direction for clients?
Um, this I've gotten a lot better at. And I've also spoken to a lot of graphic designers about this and watched a lot of YouTube videos about it, and I'm still not the best at it. But I love to meet with them in person or over FaceTime if possible. I
Mhm,
will not do something if I can't like interact with the person. Um, and it's like getting them to describe their brand in certain words, asking them a lot of questions. My friend who's an Ottawa graphic designer whose tag is local weirdo studio, he shared with me like a bunch of funny questions that he asks all of his clients, and I'm not gonna like out all of them, but it was like, what genre of music would your brand be? And just like taking that and then like spinning that with like exactly what the client asked and eliminating a lot of things like what colors do you see your brand using, what colors don't you see your brand using, um, which really helps me get a better idea. And there's definitely been times when I've asked a client and like been exposed to them a lot. And then like I'll ask them these questions. I'm like, I literally would never have expected you to have described your brand this way.
yeah,
So it's really important to ask a lot of questions. I like putting on like a mindless reality TV show or a podcast in the background and then just sketching a lot. That's like the whole like subconscious thing, like not thinking about it too much and just being like everything that I think about this thing, dumping it out.
mhm,
And then process of elimination. I think something I've learned too is like never show your work too early. I was always doing that where I was like, look at these sketches. And it was literally just like really bad sketches that only I understood. I was like, no, I see the potential in this. And they would be like, maybe not that, versus like presenting something properly and like giving the reason why everything is the way that it is. Like, I think half of the stuff that I make only makes sense because of the context around it. So showing something without context makes it really hard for a client to understand why something came to be, and then gives them a lot more room to like question things.
mhm.
Um, yeah, that's the answer to it.
Yeah,
Hi
yeah.
guys.
That's awesome. Um, are you done showing this is amazing. Yeah, I love the different textures and the
I
colors
love
and just
zooming
it's
in. I
so
love,
rich. Yeah.
yeah, you can't get this texture as much as you want to. You can't get this texture from like, I no, I'm assuming you can. I just don't know how to do it from like, all those tutorials on like how to get like the perfect texture to make it look printed. It's so much easier for me to just print it out and then scan it and then get that texture organically.
Yeah.
I also wanted to show this project, which I want to show you also. Let me enlarge this. I did this project where I went to a castle in France with a bunch of content creators,
Uh-huh.
and we were tasked with pairing up with somebody, and I paired up with this girl named Janice Journal, who's here. Um, and we're both like really like computer girls. And
Uh-huh.
we both happen to have made a tutorial on this content aware scale tool. So then we're like, it only makes sense for us to content aware scale every single person here. So I just broke it up into like three groups, not named for sure. They're all group one.
Uh-huh.
Um, but it would be like, uh-oh, oh
Okay.
my gosh. It would just be
Yeah.
like taking somebody like Itzel here.
I know
Which I
Excel. Hi,
really?
Excel. Yeah.
Oh, hi, Itzel.
So
She's an
cool.
angel. Let me just see
Yeah.
if I can paste her here. And then this is the part where everybody was like memeing at me because I was like, I don't know how to do this properly. Um, where I would just take this and then turn it into a smart object and then rasterize it. Everybody's like, you can just apply the smart tool. I don't know what it's called even. And then
Cool.
this content aware scale tool, I'm just such a big fan of because I just squished everybody like this until they looked really funny. And then, like I was talking about, I love grids. So then I just created this
Yeah.
grid with like the same margin around and then divided everybody up. And
Izella is
then,
actually here in the chat. She's
no way,
she's
hurry,
laughing. She's laughing. She's like, "Hi."
there she is, sweet angel. She actually looks better here than I did last time, but that's the whole thing. It's like playing around with the proportions. Like this guy, Sam, I like stretched him out horizontally versus more people and did,
Yeah.
I don't know, and then sometimes with skirts, it like wouldn't do it properly. So I would cut it up and then squish that. Um, but
It's
then
great.
I also paired up with like another graphic designer here, Jesse, permanent glue on Instagram. And I was
Yeah.
like asking him, I was like, Jesse, I don't know how to align the text to actually make it look good. And then he was like, use grids, like this should be the same size as this.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of asking questions and like, look, the grids don't even align here. I don't know why. But once again, like I made it digitally and then I was like, I feel like it's lacking flavor. So then I printed it out and then it just gives like this texture that I'm obsessed with.
Yeah.
And then yeah,
How
when it
fun. People are
yeah.
loving it in the chat. They're saying this is so love, very
Uh
funny. This is so
yeah, and
great.
it's cool because like you can just do this with like anything like um apple cheeks.
Yeah.
She did this to her cat and then used it on like birthday invites for her cat's birthday. But it just makes everybody look so funny and kind of
Yeah.
like a PlayStation 2, like not optimized graphics way. And yeah, it just feels kind of nostalgic.
Thank you for
So
showing that.
of
That's an
course.
I'm gonna check it out and try it.
It's so
Maybe
easy.
on different dogs or
Yes,
different cats.
exactly.
Yeah.
Just if you need a good laugh.
Yeah. We only have a few minutes left. Oh, one last question. Can you show what tool you use to make them small?
Yes.
Like, how did you how did the
It
last slide?
was, let me go back to this. If I go back, oops. So after like rasterizing your selected person, I just select them by clicking remove background. Like I just took a photo of her and then clicked remove background. And
Uh-huh.
then now you're just left with somebody like this. Rasterize the layer and I go edit content aware scale. And then this feature used to exist. Well, it still exists. It existed for being able to like stretch a scenery without affecting like the house in the middle of it, like to
Yeah.
be able to fill like before we had generative fill.
Mhm.
And then I just
Resize it. Yeah.
drag it in and it does everything automatically. I like it because I feel like it captures like the eyes pretty well. Like it knows that that's an important feature, the hat, and then stuff like it just picks what it thinks isn't like important at the moment. Like her arms, it just shrank a lot.
Yep.
The shoes, I love how big it keeps the shoes. I think it just like
Yeah.
sees detail and then
Yeah.
it has a mind of
Thank
its own.
It does.
Hi, it's
Okay,
okay.
we have 2 minutes left, so any last words, any last advice? I know you have one slide, which I definitely love this slide. I watched your talk, on YouTube on the Ottawa Design Club, and I loved it. Strongly suggest anyone who hasn't watched it to watch it because it's amazing. There were so many takeaways for me. um, so I'll let you talk to the slide right after I tell you my favorite quote from that, which
Okay.
is there's value for not knowing where things will end up. You aren't meant to see how everything unfolds because when you start, you aren't ready for it. You become ready for it by doing it and not thinking about it. That was my favorite quote.
Aw, that's really cute. I haven't like thought about it since that day.
So great. And this
Oh,
this slide, I mean, you made everything by paper. Okay, we have
yeah.
like 1 minute left. Go ahead.
Okay, yeah, I printed everything. I printed just no, this one I didn't even print. I just took a piece of paper and I wrote on it by hand and then I scanned it and then I brought everything into Photoshop to make my slides. But this was untouched. I just did this like on a piece of paper. This was the starting slide and it was like I don't know where to start, so I just will. And then by the end of it, it was like I can't know where to start, so start I just will. Because it's like you can't see how everything is going to unfold. You can't. I didn't know that I would be able to do this as a job when I started. It was just by
Yeah.
doing it. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I love that. Love it.
thanks.
Thank you everyone for joining. If you don't already subscribe to our channels, Adobe Live on YouTube or Behance, and also check out Emma's links. They're all in the chat. She's amazing. Thank you for joining us today, and stay tuned for the next session, which is logo design with Alex Lazaris in Photoshop. And sorry, Illustrator. But this hour went by so fast. Didn't I tell
I
you, Emma?
know. I
I
know.
told you. It would go
I
so
know.
fast. But thank
Thank
you,
you so much,
everyone.
Teresa, and thank you everyone in the chat. I love you a lot.
Yeah, thank you
Mwah.
guys.